Ready to go? They call the order the Planning Commission meeting of November 18th, 2020. Can I have a motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Approval of the minutes from the October 14th, 2020 meeting. Anybody have any corrections or changes, or anybody want to table it and wait? Or I think everybody that's here was here that time.
I move we accept them as are.
Okay, we have, anybody want a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Presentation by the State Highway Administration of the Regional Transportation Plan. David, how do you want to work this? You want to have them come forward to the?
Yeah, that's fine. They could kind of distance themselves, I guess, but two could be at the table with, because they're microphones.
Okay.
And, when I come up with the agenda, it was a presentation. It's really not. It's a lot less formal than that. That's why, like in your packets, I gave you some notes, what things we've been discussing, and I would hope you guys could, relate to them, what they can tell you a little bit about their future plans and what your concerns are and how it affects Berlin. And it's more of an open dialogue, as kind of the way we envisioned it. So,
Can I say one thing? I just learned that this is not throwing stones, so don't let anybody think I'm complaining. But I was having just casual conversation about a different topic that has really nothing to do with the Planning Commission. I think everyone in here is well aware that State Highway at some point wants to do a widening of 376 and 113 at that intersection. Separate topic altogether. This is not the place for I wanted that discussion. I really wanted that discussion to take place at a public meeting with the mayor and council, because the mayor and council are the ones that are deemed the appropriate source that are going to be giving that right away and or that property to the state. So this is not an open mayor and council meeting. This is a planning commission meeting. So you can touch on it, but I still need State Highway to come back to do a small presentation on that intersection.
Sure, we can get that set up. That's not a problem.
Okay.
and if you would, just introduce yourselves for the record.
All right, so thank you, Mayor and Council, for letting us be here. My name is Brett Dean. I'm the Assistant District Engineer for Construction.
Okay,
for
where's the
State
Planning
Highway.
Commission, by the way?
Oh, Planning Commission, my apologies. Jay Meredith, our district engineer, wanted to be here, but he had a conflict, so he sent me in his stead, so he very much apologizes. With us today, we have Dallas Baker, our Assistant District Engineer for Project Development, Jana Potvin, our Assistant District Engineer for Traffic, and Dan Wilson, our Regional Engineer for Access Management. So, like the director said, we're here really for open communication. We want to know what is important to you guys. What are the things on, your 1, your 3, your 5, your 10-year plan for Berlin, and how we at State Highway can help make that happen with future projects or things like that. Obviously, as we all know, money is tight right now due to the pandemic and just worldly events. So what we want to do is we want to start looking into the future, what we can do. We will touch on some things that we have currently in the works, some projects that are going to be coming up here relatively shortly, and some things that we've already looked at. But besides that, today, we want to be here for you. So with that, Dallas, do you want to talk a little bit about the Flower Street project that's coming up?
Yeah, so Flower Street, as you know, we're widening that road up a little bit to get additional storage space for the folks that are coming from Assateague in the summertime over to 113. We're widening it up to add an additional lane. Part of that work includes relocating some of the underground utilities, water, sewer, and some storm drain. That work has been broken out into a separate project, which is just went out to bid November 17th, and we expect to have bids back from that in the next 60 days, hopefully with the goal of getting started on that work come springtime. The first step will be, again, relocating those underground utilities. The main part that we're calling the geometric improvements has two components. The first part is buying the necessary right-of-way that we need to widen the road, and then the second part is relocating the existing utility poles out of the way where that widening is going to be, which goes to this gentleman's question as to why we actually need to buy that right-of-way. So we need to move the existing utility poles out of the way and put them someplace else. We can't put them on private property. We have to make sure that we've got the right-of-way for them to be relocated. That is funded and would take place. My understanding is the right-of-way acquisition is supposed to be finished up sometime by January. So then once we have the right-of-way, we can then go in and start relocating the utility poles. And again, that could potentially be also in the springtime as well.
Are those poles on the south side of that road?
Yes. Yes.
So the acquisition, land acquisition's on the south side?
Correct. Correct. It's from Dollar General, some of it from Berlin itself, and then also from the that development there behind.
Mallard, something. I think it's
Yeah,
called.
yeah. So now the actual geometric improvements, right now, we do not have funding for that in this fiscal year. We are asking for it in fiscal year 22, but we have not received those budgets yet to know if we'll receive the funding or not. Again, state budgets are very tight, but we are, it is one of our top priorities for Berlin to get that job finished up, and we're doing our best to keep everything moving forward.
Are sidewalks included in that plan on the south side there?
I believe they are.
I don't think so.
I think they're on the
They're on
north
the north
side
side.
because of the stormwater management
Yes.
on the south side.
Okay.
So there's not room to put sidewalk on that side, or?
No, that's where the triple pipe comes through,
Right.
is my understanding. On that
Because
south
I know
side.
when you all
there.
did the widening over there by the hospital,
Yes,
I was disappointed to not see sidewalks come in on the south side there when that was done.
yeah, we had, so that project went through multiple iterations as well, through our design processes, and it was really a right-of-way crunch with the utilities and where we had to put the stormwater management facilities. So that side of the road is where our stormwater facilities, our bio-retention facilities ended up going. There was just no room. We did end up trying to shrink the lanes as much as possible, but in order to proceed and get our permits for that project, we were only able to permit and widen out with the help of the right-of-way that we got from the hospital side.
So again, it just wasn't possible to do it on the south side of that road either.
No, no, sir. Yeah, it was, when we did our original plan for that job, that was our intention. We were going to hope to get on the south side of that side as well, but as we progressed through design, we weren't able to. It would have taken, I'm trying to think back, I know we would have needed total takes on, I think, all three properties on that side in order to do it, with it, and the utility, and so the utility and right-of-way costs ended up being so much that for that project, it was just preventative for us.
So, and I first wanted to preface my statement by saying thank you all for being here. So as long as I've been on this commission, I really wanted to interface with you guys, so I really appreciate you guys coming.
No, we're happy to be here, we really are.
Is there any way on this project then, on Bay Street, to consider getting sidewalks, buying the necessary land to accommodate the stormwater and do it with the sidewalks, or is that just, am I just spitting in the wind?
We had looked at it,
Yeah, at this point, no, I mean,
not if we're going to move forward
Yeah.
with our current plan and timing. What we can do is we can go back throughout our project history, because again, when we start a project and we do initiation, we kind of build out from the Cadillac side and we come in. So what we can do is we can look at the reasonings why sidewalks were taken from that south side, and maybe we can come back with a more specific rationale, not just right away. We can actually show it on a plan.
Well, those 2 points, that road and the one by the hospital, I mean, you cannot safely ride a bicycle or access out there, you just can't. I mean, I ride a bike a lot, and going out Bay Street, you're taking your life in your hands till you get past the apartment houses, and even then, the roads are so narrow. Whatever consideration you guys can give to bicycle pedestrian movement in both of those zones, I think we desperately need it. It's really two choke points that are highly traveled, and there just isn't, the Dollar General there and all, I really would like to see some pedestrian movement there. That's just my own thoughts.
Yeah, and look, that's why we're here today. Like we said, we want to know the important things to the commission, you know.
Those two roads are major access points to and from town to get out of town and recreate and do what you want to do on your feet and on your bike, and they're bad. I mean, to have the high school out there not even safely accessible by bicycle, to me is sad, going down that corridor from the hospital. That whole boulevard, I've always had this vision of a tree-lined boulevard with some sidewalks going down there. And on every project we do there, we provide for a sidewalk and try to get trees all we can get. That could be a beautiful boulevard instead of the industrial wasteland it is now. And whatever thoughts you all can put into that in your planning, I know I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, that's the one we were thinking about, how, if you could do a 3-lane, like the suicide lane, I guess you call it. Is that the proper term?
A twiddle,
The twiddle, yeah.
Okay.
two-way left turn lane.
Okay, that's what I think the vision was for, you know, to have the
Now,
third lane in
now
the
you're
center.
referring to, for their edification, you're referring to 346 now.
Yes.
Yeah, you're talking about the section from 346.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Basically from
Get to the house,
PGH
the
coming
high
in
school.
towards.
From,
Good to that.
well, are you talking about 113 to 50? Or are you talking about 50 to 50?
No,
On 346.
113 and 346. That's what he was talking about, the accessibility to the
Well,
hospital.
I guess, 346 ties in at 2 points on 50.
Yes,
So are
going
you
towards the
talking,
hospital.
you're talking east of the
Yeah, going
hospital?
east, yes. That's what, I thought you were referring to that to get to the high school.
Right, that's what,
Yeah.
yeah.
That road just doesn't have to be as ugly as it is, and whatever you all can do to contribute to getting sidewalks on each side and thinking about that when you're planning. To me, the three major roads that we got problems with are North Main Street extended, and these two roads we're talking about. There's a lot of people going a lot of ways on these roads, and they don't accommodate pedestrians and bicycles very well.
Well, let me ask you this, with regard, I mean, when we look at 818. 818 has a very narrow cross section, the whole way from 50.
Which one is that?
That's Main Street. Main Street.
Main Street.
From 50, all the way into town. There are utility poles, that are lying aside. 818 isn't necessarily part of our spine network for bicycles. But that's not to say that we're not concerned about bicycle usage on
Did
these
you say
roads.
spine network?
Yeah, we have a bicycle spine network.
And that's
that-
part of your long-term plan for bicycles?
Yes.
Good, okay.
But when bicycles are allowed on the roadway, to share the road.
But it's not safe.
Well,
Nobody wants to ride out in North Main Street on a
I
bike.
guess the question is, are you specifically interested in on-road facilities, or are you looking for something that would be an off-road?
No, definitely
shared-
off.
No shared road, near shared path?
Off-road.
Because I will say this, that if that's what you want, then when you review the plans, then it needs to be clear that Berlin wants to widen for bicycles, because that is a 5-foot widening, and because we will get kickback from us because there are no bicycle lanes, and it's not a spine network, and it's just when we do our traffic counts, we don't necessarily see a high volume of bicyclists at the intersections in
That's because
Berlin.
nobody to ride there because it's not safe.
Well, it's which comes first, the chicken or the
Yeah, and
egg,
that's always the
You know,
catch-22.
building
People
a
don't ride
road.
there because it's not safe, but
I
then
don't-
what if it is?
I ride there and take my life into my own hands, and I'm not comfortable.
But that's got, that also, from our aspect, that has to be clear and documented to the developers that Berlin is committed to providing bike lanes on these roads.
Yeah, for any of the access permit projects, Dave, or anything like that, that's a perfect opportunity to where we can put it out there and say, this is what the town wants to do. I generally work with Dave, I'm sorry, I was looking directly to him, but that's the perfect chance. Whenever someone's moving in, and I mean, bike lanes or anything else you might be looking for. Like that's the opportunity during that preliminary plan review stage to where we can put the comments out there, we can get feedback, and we can work with the developer to try to make something happen.
So are you saying that this commission should be initiating, telling the developer, you're gonna have to provide for a sidewalk here and a bike lane? Is that our initiative or is that your initiative?
That can either come from you directly, or it can come through our commentary. Like when I'm issuing comment letters, and I have all of the state highway reviewing office's comments in there, then I can add into my own comments that Berlin wants X, Y, Z.
So how do you get a statement from Berlin to you that's authoritative that says, in the future, will you please tell everybody to plan on bike lane sidewalk combination?
If you put that in your letters, because I'm assuming it comes into the town to be reviewed.
Yeah.
If you put that in your letters to the developers, and we put that into the developer letters, it just carries more weight.
Yeah.
You know,
And a lot of time, this is how the progression starts with roadways. We've seen it throughout Maryland, where it starts with development. It's a lot harder for state highway to come in without having real traffic numbers or a real political push to do a long corridor-wide project. It starts with the developers. Let's say Royal Farms comes in and
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven, and we push for certain things because that's what is in the local master plan or what have you. They start it. Then from there on, the adjacent developer wants to develop, and boom, they have to put in the same restrictions, the same widening and network. So a lot of times that's when it starts. Then you'll have gaps in there, and then state highway will come in and say, hey, we have a real opportunity here to have some progressive and tie in some of these things. So that's when we might come in with a widening project to tie in some of these developments.
So what we frequently find ourselves doing, we'll say to like on the corridor from the hospital through by Barrett's Chevrolet. We will say we have a half-assed corridor plan. We never really adopted one. I wrote one, but we haven't really formally adopted it. Basically, we want a tree-lined boulevard with sidewalks. And so whenever a developer comes in, we'll say, give us land for a future sidewalk somewhere when we have money. We're not making the developers build it.
Well, I've got
And sometimes we have made developers do it. You'll see sidewalks to nowhere out there.
And that's what we require.
Yeah, I actually
Usually part of
have,
what?
It's like, no, I'm
Yeah.
saying like on 346, we've had a couple of it come in through, we're like, you need to provide, you need to provide sidewalks.
Do they need to
Yeah.
build them or just
They
provide?
would build them.
space?
building,
They would build it.
yeah.
So our impression has always been, and what we started out on this didn't just sound like that any, let's say a commercial project, like the 818, the 7-Eleven.
Sure.
Before that, it was just, let's call it raw land. Now it's a commercial project. You wouldn't approve anything that didn't have sidewalks and bike lanes in front of it, is that correct?
That may have been historically correct, but that has changed with, there was a period, 5 years ago, when there was a big push for everybody to widen for bikes. That has sort of gone by the wayside, and it's more of a strategic placement of bike lanes because of the cost prohibitiveness for some developers.
Well, sometimes safety too. Like,
And safety too.
Yeah, US 50, you're not gonna ask for like sidewalks out there because you don't want
No,
someone out there walking around.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously.
So
Yeah, yeah.
would the state pay for like a separate sidewalk and a bike lane and a sidewalk that's like a green strip in between?
No, when a developer would come in, we would be providing the access and giving the access permit for that. They would.
I mean, not pay for it, I meant, I guess you would, I wouldn't want to ride a bike on the next two cars coming behind me at 45 miles an hour on Main Street, but
And that's why I was asking, I said, would you be interested in having a shared use path adjacent to the
I
roadway?
think that's would make more sense.
Yeah, I'm not into.
But I thought you said you didn't like,
I'm not into having a bike lane and a sidewalk. I don't think it's necessary. I think sidewalks are adequate for bikes, for people who want to get off the road. So to me,
So we're not
allowed to do that.
to do that.
you're not allowed to do that.
No.
That's an ADA.
We're not allowed to build a pedestrian sidewalk, a standard 5-foot wide sidewalk, and then say, bikes, you can ride here also. What
It's
we
gotta be
can
10 foot.
It has to
require,
be 10 foot, and then it would be called a shared use path.
yes.
Oh.
And it would be off the
So
road.
when we say we can't do that, that's we're not gonna put a sidewalk and then say, okay, that handles bikes and peds. If you want both, then you've got the shared.
And that could be
use path.
asphalt, or?
Yeah,
It could be asphalt?
yeah, it could be just like the one in West Ocean City.
Yes.
And, you know, that would,
That would be less scary.
well, you know,
Oh, yeah, a lot
for
less
the recreational bicyclist and, you know, the 5-year-old child with them, you know, kind of thing, it is, it at least gives you a sense of being a safer placement. You know, you are not mixing with the vehicular traffic.
That just sounds myopic and the tail wagging the dog. I mean, let's face it, on 340, from AGH to the high school, you don't need a bike path and a sidewalk.
Well,
And why can't we get the regulations right and say you can have a shared use sidewalk 5 feet wide? I mean, this kind of
Because
stuff-
bikes are considered motor vehicles.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying, doesn't that strike you as unreasonable and excessive?
maybe if I was not, maybe, you know, if I'm in a wheelchair and I need 3 full feet, you know, I don't necessarily want.
Yeah, but a guy on a bike is gonna defer to the wheelchair.
You know, there was a case not too long ago in well, I forgot, Fairfax, Vienna, where, you know, they've got a big shared use bike path kind of thing, and a speeding bike knocked over a man and he died, you know, because he was going too slow on his own bicycle. So you assume that, I don't
If you
know, I'm
have a
just,
bike path and a sidewalk and the guy did something stupid, then you sue him for negligence.
Oh,
But I
well,
mean-
well, I mean, the reality is what you're talking about, you know, that's beyond our purview.
Yeah.
We can, you know, we're in the hypotheticals of what the law allows.
Yeah.
We have to work within the regulations, and it's, if you have a standard 5-foot wide sidewalk, then you are, you may, typically, if you can, and if it makes sense, you can put a bike lane on the road. But if that's, you know, and this is where the communication with the town helps. Because if you're not interested in making that on the road, and you want it off the side, then we'd have to talk about making it a 10-foot wide shared use path. And understand too, that you're probably gonna get even more pushback from developers, because now they're giving up a sizable amount of right-of-way along their frontage.
Yeah.
And that becomes even more critical that your letters and ours both reflect the same thing to these developers.
but by that same token though, Dallas, if they've got to widen it 5 feet for the bike lane, and they've got to put the sidewalk in, it's still 10 feet.
And that's-
You know,
And
that's where the
something we
crux
can have
of it
this-
is.
And then we can have a discussion with us internally about if they are providing the room for the 10-foot path, do they have to?
Well, no, they would, no, I would say they probably would not. And plus, if you're looking at like 818, it may also be a cost-saving measure because they wouldn't have to relocate the utilities.
Yes.
You know, but like 818, I'm focused on simply because you've got more undeveloped land, from 50 to downtown, 346. There's more undeveloped land. So this is the time to think about what you want to see over the next
From
20
your
years.
perspective, let's say on the road going by AGH out to Barron on out to 50, what should we be looking at? Should we be looking at a bike lane there and a sidewalk on each side? Is that what we should be looking at? And is there room to widen that road and accommodate a bike lane?
I think so, when you have something like, I think it should just be on one side.
A bike lane
Pick one side or the other,
for a bike
for
lane.
both.
Well, bike lane has to be on both sides
Bike lane
unless
would be
you,
on both,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
unless if it was off-road,
yeah,
such as what we have in West Ocean City.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think a real bike.
Because,
lane is.
I mean, sometimes they have the bi-directional bike, you know, but they're usually separated with a buffer and usually on a one-lane road, you know, I forgot.
But I think we have land restrictions on.
Like the Salisbury.
Yeah, what's the name of that? I'm just like, it's gone.
Well, for each of the two projects we've been working on recently, we've had them put in sidewalk and then add a bike lane to it, just to answer your question on what we've done recently. But with the dialogue we've got now, we're open to some type of other future planning. Like, I mean, if you wanted to lay something out, that project by project, we could work towards, I mean, we would be more than willing.
We've already kind of lost the train going out of the station because we haven't set the precedent on that road for bike lanes.
Yeah, there's really not a lot of space there, and that's just what it is. There's a lot of really wide access points there. There's a lot of stuff we would love to correct, and we're just going to have to wait for the opportunity whenever more development comes in, some people leave, to where we can go in and we can correct things there. Like, I mean, Kelly Foods is an extremely wide access point that we would never allow. And there are several more there.
The animal
That's,
hospital.
yeah, and it's,
The access is the entire length of the property. That's certainly not something that we like. That's a very unsafe thing
Yes.
for both people on the roadway as well as, coming out of the hospital, because, access points are there for a reason. They're there because it's an expectation that that's where vehicles or pedestrians will be coming in or out of. When you have wide open access throughout an entire parcel, it's much more difficult to gauge where vehicles are going to be coming in and out of, and that's where safety concerns happen. The main reason why we have access control, one of the main reasons.
Well, just to keep it on that road for a minute, then I'm left with the feeling that our only option really is to keep pushing for sidewalks. I can't see us requiring a developer to give a 10-foot wide bike lane on both sides of their road. I don't see that as an option.
I don't know that it would be a 10-foot wide. I think that if you had a shared use path, it would be on one side. So one developer would
The
be.
north or south side developers are gonna get screwed, in other words, and there's just no room to do that.
Yeah.
So I see us left with a practical solution of basically keep requiring sidewalks and we ride our bikes on the sidewalks, even though you guys don't approve that. And
yeah.
hopefully you guys won't enforce
Well,
that.
SHA is not an enforceable enforcing agency.
We are not an enforceable agency.
Actually,
We
the town
will sign
code
it.
says you can't ride a bicycle on the
I
side.
know it does.
Most ordinances say that you cannot.
And the law says that, guys. Sidewalks are not for bicycles.
Actually, unless the local jurisdiction
Correct.
says they can
We
be.
do not.
And,
Most jurisdictions do not, because there's a liability aspect
Yeah.
about having what is considered a motor vehicle on a pedestrian facility.
and then we also have issues of whether or not that sidewalk is an SHA right-of-way. While it still may be your sidewalk, if it's an SHA right-of-way, then we would also have to give the approval for bicycles to be on that.
Just for my knowledge, the Bay Street, how far down would that be going widening? Are we talking
Just to that
It just goes.
development there.
just to where the apartments?
Yeah,
stop?
just right, yeah.
Thank you.
And there is, the widening that's being done there is included enough for bike lanes. It is not being striped for bike lanes because it's only a very short length.
It's the bike lane in the road, right? Bike lane in the
But
road.
there is enough room for future striping for bike lanes.
And in conjunction with the Bay Street project, we're going to be resurfacing the entirety of 376 all the way to 611. We're actually starting that work next week. And I think BMS board's going next week. It might be starting paving the following week. So basically, from the project limits of that project all the way to 611, that will be resurfaced this fall.
So
Stay off that road.
you're coming in town, down Bay Street past Bottom Branch?
We're coming from 611
Assateague Road.
basically to, up to where.
The gas station.
The gas station.
113 611.
Yeah.
We got some manholes in there, and I know when Jay Jackson was here, they wanted them raised, and we can't just go out there and raise them because it's so much traffic in the road.
So, I'm trying to think that's just an overlay job, I believe. So, our contractor will raise the manholes up to the grade of because I'm fairly certain that job is just
Well,
an inch and a half.
As County Water Resources Department, we will want to inspect them because
Yeah.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
contractor has been known to put the Parsons insert and then put the riser on top, so then you have to cut it out and do that. So-
100%.
Well,
Well, my
our-
project engineer will coordinate with your staff.
And are those gravity, is that part of what's going to be rehabbed too?
Not the paving project.
No, I meant the manholes.
No, it's not pretty much from Mallard Ridge to 113 is where all the.
Okay, so
sewer-
you're talking beyond the Mallard Ridge, okay.
Yeah, I'm saying starting at Mallard Ridge and Quail
I
Run
got you.
1
Okay.
east.
No, we'll make sure we coordinate with that, absolutely.
Well, let me, if you don't mind, just summarize a little bit here. Do you want a letter from me or from the town administrator that addresses what we're talking about? Because I can tell you, this commission, whenever we have a commercial project or a multifamily residential project, they always ask for and almost demand sidewalks and bike lanes.
Yeah.
Under the assumption to this point that so did you. So we felt, that no matter what, they're gonna be required to do that, and we pointed out, we do talk about it, Mr. Cosby especially. And we just had the recent one with IG Burton, where we're like, hey, wait, we're looking at the site plan, there's no sidewalk on here, why not? And they, you know, the engineer is here saying, well, it just goes to nowhere. So what?
Right.
You know, there is such a thing as connectivity. So we were under the assumption, and I guess I shouldn't say we, I should say me, that that would be caught at your access management, your traffic letter, telling them, no, you didn't give us sidewalks and we'll approve the plan. So at this point, to make it policy, you want a letter from me that says,
Well-
every project that comes across your desks, we want sidewalks and bike lanes.
And
Well-
that's where it'd also be helpful for the town to have, you know, a master plan saying what it is that you want, so that we can then make that up, you know. 'Cause I mean, officials change, and so a letter today does not mean the same thing as it does 2 years from now, as opposed to having something that you all passed. But, yeah, we'd be having something from you all at some point to say what it is you want on your roads helps us better coordinate with contractors, the
So you-
consultants.
Dallas, you're referring to something like, the county does a comment thing where they talk about their regional transportation plan themselves, right? They get information from you, and basically, my knowledge of that is, that's pretty much just a form letter every year. And then they also are relying on your offices and your people to, okay, make it happen. Is that incorrect?
So I think what you're referring to is the CTP letter, which is.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, the top 10 priorities
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Worcester County,
Yep.
which, you know, right now, you know, for years it was dualized 113.
Yep.
That's off.
Now
You
it's
can
Maryland
finish it.
90.
Now it's dualized Maryland 90. Second, I think it's dualized 589. So, you know, we've got several million, hundreds of millions of dollars of projects to drill down. Now, that does not say that we don't address these local issues at the same time as well. It's just that's, you know, the pot that you try to dualize Maryland 90 from is not the same pot that you go through and try to connect in bike lanes and shared use paths.
Right, sidewalks, crosswalks, et cetera. Yeah.
Exactly. So one, it would benefit the town, it would benefit developers, it would benefit our state highways' ability to coordinate with the town if we had a plan from you all saying, here's what we envision through our town, on your local roads, on your state roads, wherever, okay? Then that gives us more weight, especially if it's something that has been passed, you know, by the mayor and council.
That's what we all.
However, in the interim, while, if Berlin chooses to work on something like that, on these individual projects, as they come across the planning commission,
They don't have.
if you're putting in your letters that you, what it is that you want to see from these developers, share that with us, and then we can echo those same comments. Again, it just provides a unified front from the town and from state highway to the developers.
And this is true for, you know, right now, we've basically been focused on Main Street and 346 from 113 out, but you've got more development, you know, on the other side of 818 as well on 346. And it's just, like I said, what I want to know is like, okay, you want sidewalks, that's great. Bike lanes, fine. Or do you want the off-road shared use path? And if you do, what side of the road do you want it on?
Well, we just, you know, we're of the understanding that usually it's one or the other.
Well, it would be. It would be
You know,
bike lanes and a
where
sidewalk.
practical, you of course would want, that shared use path would be beautiful everywhere, but, you know, like Mr. Cosby's talking about a boulevard on 346, that would be great, but we're not gonna get that.
No, you're not, but you might get.
Because of people have private property and we're not gonna get them to give it to us and for a whole bunch of reasons, cost, everything. So, yeah, that'd be nice, but that's never gonna happen.
So right now, I'm hearing of the 5-foot wide bike lane, which is a typical 5-foot wide bike lane, and the 5-foot sidewalk. Okay.
Well, Dave, and with that too, like, I mean, you can have certain staples, like your bike lane, sidewalk, whatever else, that you can write me up a form letter basically telling me that. But you and I can communicate during
And we do.
each
We
and
do.
every
Yeah.
project. Like if there's something specific to the 7-Eleven as opposed to the IG Burton, then we can ask for that too. Like we're not opposed to going off script if there's something that the town needs to see. We can see the rationality of it or whatever else.
Well, it's just like
So-
recently with the 7-Eleven, you know, the development in 50 and 818 did not show sidewalks. That was one of my comments to
Yeah.
Dan, like, hey, where are the sidewalks, you know?
Right.
Obviously, we don't have any controls, you know, there's not a controlled intersection as far as like signalized at 80 or other type of treatment at 818 and 50, which I notice is also on your list. But what are we going to do for the future? And I will touch a little bit about 818 and 50 intersection. And the possibility of a traffic signal there.
Which one is 818?
Main Street,
Main Street, yeah.
sorry. But, you know, yeah, I will say this. I believe that it will be highly unlikely that there will be a traffic signal there, given the proximity of the railroad and proximity of the 113 ramp. It's just, we, you know, that's, there are situations, the intersection there is just a little difficult because of those things. Because we don't want to stop traffic and have them back up onto 113, where that ramp comes in. Now, what treatment we finally decide upon, or finally, you know, it will obviously be a communication with Berlin and the State Highway, what treatment finally ends up there. But
And the other, the end of 818, the other end, the southern end, where it meets Germantown Road.
yes,
Again, these are both
sections, yeah.
public comments all the time to the board, the commissions, staff. What about a stoplight there? What are we going to do about that? I mean, these are just ones that are brought up frequently. And people, you know, I don't think they understand how much of that you have to do, your group has to do to verify that it's needed and justify the expense and the length of time it takes for that. But
And verify that's the proper treatment for that area. Because, you know, you look at 113, the dualization, most of those were, you know, J-turns, basically we call them restricted crossing with
Right.
U-turns.
Right.
You know, as opposed to putting in traffic signals.
Mhm.
You know, it's,
And it's not saying that those intersections, and this is what a lot of times there's a misconception of. Someone will say, well, we meet the warrants of a traffic signal. That may be the case. You may meet a warrant, or you may even meet 2 warrants of a traffic signal. But it might not make sense. It might not be the best solution, the best alternative. So I'm not going to sit here and say that every single one of the J-turns that we've done on 113 are there because none of those intersections met traffic signal warrants. More likely than not, they probably didn't. We don't have a significant amount. But there are reasonings and rationales why we look at different approaches. You know, just because an intersection calls for, you know, it might be all traffic signal warrant analysis, but a roundabout might be the best treatment there. You know, there's just lots of different things.
essentially, and Brett's correct, essentially it needs to be evaluated with an open mind about what treatment is provided.
Well, the Germantown crossing, just as a comparison, I understand what you're saying.
And that's what,
We've reduced the speed limit to 45.
and that's 113 in Germantown?
Yes.
Oh, that one actually has a design request in that was approved to change that intersection control beacon to a signal.
You are going to put a signal there?
It has been approved. Funding has not been issued, but it has been
With the
approved.
reduction to 45, I don't think it's necessary, but then you go down to Snow Hill, and on those crossings down there, south off of 113, going across, those lights were a real hindrance, but I understand that there were some bad traffic accidents, and the speed limit there is 55, which makes it different. You're out in the country there, and there's a weird lay to the land there, so I can see that, even though it's very inconvenient. At Germantown Road, no, it's 45 miles an hour, which I consider too slow anyhow, but, okay. I don't
Well,
think-
you're coming in, you're coming into town, you're coming in, you know, the 45 gives people the perception that, hey,
What
I'm
I'm
coming into an
saying is-
area where I expect to see more traffic, more movements.
I just think it's one of those conditions where the speed limit is slow enough so you don't need a light there at the Germantown crossing, but that's just my opinion. But you're the expert. But,
Well, actually, that would be the Office of Traffic and Safety that, you know, all I can do is recommend.
I was just referring to the feedback we get, you know, people ask all the time.
people want a light there?
Well, but we hear
Yeah.
people, like, that people want pedestrian crossings there.
Yeah.
But there's no sidewalks, and, you know, I have never
On the cemetery side, there's sidewalks.
Right. Well, there's none quite at the intersection, it kind of stops, was it, the school,
Worcester Prep.
Worcester Prep, yeah. You know,
The problem with 818 and Germantown Road, or 818 Germantown Road, I challenge you to get in your vehicle today and head south and cross over 113 on the Germantown Road. I challenge you to do that.
To do that without having to stop, you mean?
I challenge you to do it, period.
Don't stop in the middle.
I challenge you. If you gotta stop in the middle, you got an issue.
yeah.
I do it all the time.
Well, then you're one of the fortunate few, because I refuse to cross over there.
Are there conversations about sidewalks on the west side of 346 off of 818? So we had, there's apartments that have been approved, and one of the big arguments was that when these new apartments were coming in, I live in that community, and so I was on the other side of the table, stomping my foot up and down as loud as I could, but we wanted sidewalks. You know, we said, well, if this is coming in, let us get something we want sidewalks, and that would be an extent, and then there's a whole other area that would be not the developer's, you know, responsibility. Is there anything in your guys' plans for looking at sidewalks to Main Street in that area?
That's the 50 to 818 section of 346.
Yeah, where
Yeah,
the
so it's-
Derrickson property is. that-
Yeah, there's some property up to like
So,
Purnell Crossing where those
south
townhouses
side.
are.
Yeah, that, we had
We
talked
looked at
about that, we're having them put in sidewalk, but, I mean, yeah, there's.
I
only
know
so
we
much
required them
we
on
can
818,
do.
I'm assuming we required them on 346, but that's been.
Because there would be
Wow.
like, it wouldn't make it all the way, you know what I mean? It wouldn't make it to Main Street.
Well, we've even talked about the potential for a pedestrian crossing there, but we have to have things warranted. We can't just, you know, speculate on like future usage and everything else. Like, so we didn't require that when it all shook out, but we did ask for sidewalk along the property frontage there.
You're not gonna require 100 people live over there, but if all of a sudden. maybe
Unless it,
when
yeah,
a
my
thousand
thought
live
process
there,
is with the
then
amount of
like-
apartments that were coming,
Yeah.
that it would be a good thing. Because I mean, I live right there, I walk down there. People in that road are nice, they drive on the other side, but they're still zooming by you.
This is
Yeah.
the perfect example of something that I was discussing earlier. When development comes first, then we can start seeing pedestrian generators.
Okay.
And that's when State Highway will start to look at potential connectivity projects. Hey, we have a gap here. Let's look at sidewalk. We had an example up in Dorchester County on Race Street where we had pedestrian facilities put in with the development on one side. We had pedestrian facilities that went to the high school, but nothing in the middle. So, hey, State Highway's looking at it, and we're going to be putting that connectivity in there. So this is the exact example that I was talking about of if the development comes and starts to put in these sidewalks to nowhere, you know, State Highway will then take a look back, you know, drop back, punt, and say, hey, we now have these connectivities. We can look at a project to tie this stuff in. And that is when, I believe Mr. Denny had asked who would pay for it. That would be something that the state would go ahead and do as a state project, and we would pay for that connectivity and that sidewalk. Look, State Highway doesn't like having sidewalks that are not ADA compliant along our roadways. It frustrates the heck out of me when I do all my work in Ocean City and we have one stubborn property owner that won't give a right of entry because we don't own any of that land there. And we have to literally saw cut on either side of their property, do all of our improvements and leave the non-compliant section in front of their property. but when we don't own it, we can't
So for
forcibly
like-
go in and do the work.
So for like, and I don't behold you to it, but for like a timeline. So let's say, I forget how many apartments, it's 200, anyone know? 200 apartments, you know, so a couple hundred people. Is it then, once people are in there, a study is then done about the number of people coming down that road to then put it out to bid, to then see if, or is it, hey, they're building it, so we know these people are gonna be here, let's look at this again before like it's finished?
In conjunction,
Okay.
the nice thing about, you know, when you say putting it out to bid, a lot of times we don't have to put these projects out to bid. We can do the smaller scale
Okay.
projects under an area-wide project. We've done a lot of sidewalk up through the town of Berlin here in the last 5 years. And these projects aren't single-ad projects. We do it as a part of an area-wide project. We look at an area that needs it, needs improvements, needs connectivity. But Janet, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and also, what, your ADA, you know, connectivity paperwork, it is also dependent upon how large of a section is needed. We're not gonna connect a mile, you know, you might connect 100 feet, you know, but.
Right, and it really helps to actually have,
So is there any plan from the Bank of Ocean City up to the corner of 818 that, I think half of that's filled in with sidewalks and half of it is not? It goes from the bank on the south side up to 818 Main Street.
Yeah, I'm trying to
I don't-
picture- I'm
I
trying to
don't know what
picture
that
it
is.
right now.
It's where the gymnasium places and.
Yeah, where the
Yeah.
shopping plaza
Yeah.
is.
The Bank of Ocean City.
Bank of Ocean City's in
Jumps the
there.
railroad on
think there's
346.
Oh, okay, I'm on the wrong road. Okay,
I was too. Burley was
The
good.
brewery's right in the middle, and there's, the Bank of Ocean City has provided
Yeah.
sidewalk to nowhere. They own the house next door to it, and then there's another house for sale, whatever. Once they cut the bushes down, there was a house there, but anyway.
And now it's a hot commodity.
And then it goes past the Ace Printing Place and so on and so forth, and that, there's nothing on either side. It seems like it would be appropriate on that side, if that was on the schedule somewhere to
We
fill that whole thing
can
in.
take a look at that. We can
And then
take a
it
look
then
at
would
that
continue on
conversation.
across the road up to where he was talking about, which would go up, continue on 346 up to
And just keep on the south
where that
side.
project, you just required the people to put the sidewalk in.
We have a running list of our wants throughout the district, and that's a big reason why we're.
Well,
here.
that one just seems like it would tie that
Yeah.
whole, that thing together. I mean, I have on Route 50 also, if I'm wrong, is there a crosswalk that goes across Route 50 over to the cancer center? I know you guys put the,
113?
yes, on
Okay.
113, going across.
Yeah,
Is
there,
there the, you know, the typical stripes with a, is that there or? I don't-
yes, there is a crosswalk.
I know there's crosswalks.
Oh, there's one, I'm not sure. I will tell you this, that signal at that signal at 113 and 346 where the hospital is, there's also, it's been approved so we're waiting on funding, for that signal to be redeveloped. And included in that redevelopment, that design request was a request for them to also, put, audible and pedestrian countdown signals in for the crossing as well.
Just to have the stripes there, it makes people slow down if they're
But the problem,
got it
driving
on
up
three.
to it.
I'm not sure I'm not sure if it, I truly
It
don't
doesn't have it
know.
on the near side.
No crosswalk, well,
No,
the
it's
issue,
there.
the issue with putting a crosswalk in is that, is a perceived level of safety.
Mhm.
And when there are pros and cons, you know.
Oh, yeah.
The person who's standing in the crosswalk thinks they're safe because they're in a crosswalk.
No, I walk across 113 all the
They're
time.
not.
The only place I don't go over is where the crosswalk is because it scares me to death. Because at Azatee Road, I'll cross over up by the park and north of that because I can see down that way and, you know.
But we do have several projects that involve traffic signals and pedestrian signals that are being programmed in. It's just they're waiting.
I know
for funding.
that one still doesn't have the big, you know, the big thing in the ground. They still have the wires hanging like
Yeah,
it's the old west.
and the new signal will not be on the span wire. It'll be a pole mast arm.
So these projects, the smaller ones you're referring to, not the big ticket items like Route 90, that you have a quote wish list for, and you're waiting for funding, it's already got as you refer to it, a warrant on it, right? It's already approved, in other words?
It's been approved. The traffic signals are designed and constructed through our Office of Traffic and Safety in Hanover. We put in the request for it, they approve it, and once it's on, once they approve it, it is on their schedule to put it in, but yeah.
All right, but these other, you mentioned sidewalk, Brett
Mhm.
mentioned sidewalks that are on your wish list, I think you
Yeah.
referred to it. And I know you're like us, you're probably always awaiting funding or fighting the battle of funding, especially now, this year. How do we get that list? So I don't, at their behest, maybe hammer you for this, I want this here, and you already approved it.
Well, so.
I mean, I don't have that information.
No, that's a great question. We generated this list, this was actually just, it's easy to talk about because we just did it a few months ago. The Office of Highway Development, which is one of our headquarters-based offices, reached out to us and said, hey, your current contract, your current ADA contract is expiring. Do you need us to advertise and move forward with a new one? What is your perceived wish list for ADA projects? That's when we looked out did it district-wide, and we reached out to all of our resident maintenance engineers and all of our shops and said, hey, where do you guys need sidewalks throughout your areas? And we came up with a list.
I'm pretty sure 346 is on the list.
I know part of 346 is on the list. I can go back, Dave, and pull that and see what was in Berlin, and
Yeah,
anything that you would like to potentially be added to that, such as what
Right.
Mr. Denny, just came up.
It would be good to have input on that, or at least see it, so that we know, well, how come you bypassed this outside of 346 on the Bank of Ocean City to 818, but you included this? I mean, that's always a good thing to,
Well, that's the way
knowledge is
the-
power, right? So-
I will get that, and I'll send
Knowledge
it
is
to you,
power.
Dave.
Yep.
And that's, again, that goes back also to, if Berlin has a master plan of where you see sidewalks and bike lanes, not only does that help us make sure that when developers come in for requiring it, it also opens up Berlin's opportunities to qualify for grants and things like that we can put you in touch with in our Office of Planning and Engineering.
I hear what you're saying as far as a master plan. But
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. We're in the comprehensive plan review phase. We should add something to the comprehensive plan that says that we should have a master plan for these three major corridors.
Well, and understand too, I'm a little familiar with what it takes to get past a comprehensive plan. This can be something separate, it does not have, you
Well, I
just have a
understand that,
separate document. It might make it a little easier to pass for you.
I'm just mentioning that I think, just to make a note for everybody to remember, we should get something in our comprehensive plan about getting a master plan together for these major corridors.
And there's
Showing the bike
potential,
lanes.
there's potential for grant monies out there
Yes,
also for
I'm-
developing.
I heard you before, and I'm hearing you now.
Okay.
I think that's the most practical thing we can do to inform you guys and to get our job done. We need a master plan for these corridors.
Well, and with that being said, we actually met with Worcester County last week about attempting in the future to limit the number of access points. Because Worcester County and Berlin, it's growing exponentially compared to the rest of the district. And we can't give individual accesses to every single developer coming in. We're gonna have to start doing things like service roads, inter-parcel connectors, and just really trying to be smart about how we go into the future, laying the roads out and everything for safety, mobility, and
Traffic
so
light placement.
yeah, yeah. So that should definitely be something added in there also. And I know that compared to Worcester County, Berlin isn't quite as rural, but you still do have like many large parcels that could be divvied up into many commercial projects. And with that, I mean, we don't want to put 5 accesses where one access works, and slowing folks down and then creating conflict points and everything,
We're
so.
we're aware of that. In fact, we killed one project, Dollar General wanted to go right across from the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that was just crazy. You got that whole field that's gonna get developed someday.
exactly,
You gotta have a
yes.
common access point.
Now,
And-
I kind of drifted when I was addressing to Alice a minute ago.
Mm.
He mentions a master plan. This is something that would be, probably have to be approved by the mayor and council. And most people do confuse Berlin with Worcester County in the amount of resources and manpower we have, which is ridiculous. And I don't know how we will get that master plan. It would probably be two people, and it would probably take a year for a master transportation plan, like what you guys do for the whole county or the whole shore, just for the town with the major roadways that go through the town, 50 and 113, 346, 376, 374, name it. We're a crossroads. We are a large economic driver for Worcester County, but we are still small.
Well, I can say this tonight to these guys, and I'm sure they've heard it already, but, okay, we're saying it. Give us bike lanes and sidewalks on every one of these arteries to the extent you can give them to us.
Well, and with that being said, Dave, maybe you don't have funding to do the full master plan at this point in time, but we can, but we're here also saying that we would like to see the number of access points limited. So maybe whenever development rolls around the corner, that's something you can just take into consideration that we've put out there, and we would certainly be willing to work with you on any kind of strategic layouts or whatever else. Like if you know that you're going to be getting in a really large project or something like that, or there are like several large parcels that at some point in time will be developed for commercial property. Now's when we would act on that. And whenever someone moves in, we think about future planning.
And to piggyback, Dan, I mean, really, I can't stress enough how critical interparcel connectors are for future development.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, it's a convenience for people who are visiting stores, but it also helps keep people off the roadways to, go in one entrance, and have to go to the next,
And I'll inquire too with our
Planning
department
yeah.
about
Grant
possible
money.
grants for the Berlin. might
Yeah,
be eligible for.
I mean, it's not that,
You've got grants through some of our bikeways project stuff, you've got CDBG grants, your consultant engineers, this is the kind of stuff that.
But usually there is some like a
Let-
matching
let-
for
let-
that.
Let them go find you grant money for them to do the study, to say what
Yeah.
and where you want it at. It certainly doesn't have, that whole plan does not need to fall on two folks in your office and.
Yeah, definitely.
they're-
And typically, it does
Absolutely.
not.
We can-
Most
Yeah.
most towns do not work on their master plans in-house.
right.
But having it makes you more eligible for other money to then go in and build it. Because most of the places that have the money to build want to know that it's not being applied haphazardly, that it is going to be part of the network.
And if there's a master plan, other grants, anything that touches that could be eligible, such as safe routes to schools or things like that. Something that connects and touches to that can reach out, so it might be more welcoming for development, because they're like, hey, I can develop, but I can also reach out as a private developer and an entity to be eligible for some of these grants as well. So it could potentially help the growth of Berlin.
But when you have a destination along your path, so hey, we want to connect in this apartment complex via a sidewalk because there's a school over here, that type of connectivity is what really drives a lot of being eligible for money.
And then we would know moving forward what to ask for too, which is very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, that's one nice thing about a local master plan is if a development comes on it, we're always going to request what's on that master plan.
Yeah,
Right
yeah.
there.
And
it would be there, black and white.
white.
Yeah.
And in lieu of that, we will just make sure that we are trying to stay in constant communication with the town, so that we know, here you, like you said, bike lanes and sidewalks everywhere possible.
I got that written down.
Well, we have to get that in our comprehensive plan, that we should be planning and seeking master plans for our major corridors, to give you guys direction.
Yeah.
One other comment on the project Estes Road, it came up earlier and I couldn't jump in, but the manholes in the middle of the road going down there. I and a lot of other locals have memorized the location.
Felt them a time or two?
And one of my issues I wanted to bring up tonight already came up, and I wanted to bring it up. I'm sure we can't relocate those sewer lines on this project, that's too massive. So when you guys do raise the collars and do that job, will you all please tell your contractor to get it right?
Well, my contractor's Alan Myers, so I'll just, no, it's not. It's George and Lynch, they do an excellent
Get it
job.
flat.
They do an excellent
I
job.
have memorized every
We
one of
always
these manholes, and
try.
I'm dodging up that road here. I go to
But now it's at muscle memory, we can just do it automatically.
I drive that road almost every night this time of year going rock fishing, and I come back from Massachusetts, I'm dodging the manholes.
Well, and I'll say one thing, that bridge, and I forget.
Iris, yeah.
Aries, that's probably the worst deck that we have in the district, and that's being over.
Which one?
376 over Aries Creek,
Oh, really?
Here's Creek.
horrendous deck, the shape that we're milling that, we're repaving that, so I'm excited about that, because every time I go over it, I'm like, what is this? I can't stand it.
I dodge two things every night, deer and manholes.
Well, hey, you made it, you're doing something right, you're here, so.
And just thinking a little more regionally, like 589 and things, what's happening there?
A lot.
Growth, but we're not doing any major widening projects or anything like that right now.
Because they have another whole subdivision approved north of that, don't they? On the north end of it?
There's some, I thought it was like a nursing home or something, was it a?
It's
I don't
the
know.
old golf course up there, I think.
I don't know, what-
Referring to off of Beecham Road,
Mhm.
or Beauchamp?
Yep.
Depends where you're from.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's outside of our right of way.
Okay.
We did look at that, but there's a traffic signal there currently, so there's very little else we can really do.
But it's like, gonna definitely impact your roadways, right?
Well, we already have a traffic signal there, so I really don't know. I mean, we did look at it, but
I don't remember
it's,
We can always adjust signal timing when it comes to that.
yeah.
But there's, yeah.
You know, 589 is quickly becoming a higher priority within the county.
Yeah.
And it's something that at State Highway we're looking at, but we're not looking at, we're not foolish enough to think that we're gonna get funding to dualize 589 from soup to nuts, you know, from point to point. So what we've been doing is looking at our projects as segments. So for example, when we just did the project and just completed the project at 50 at 589, adding the second left turn lane from eastbound 50 onto northbound 589, you know, and therefore we did the widening on 589 up to the casino. I think that is probably, when you look at the next 10 years, more likely the improvements that you're going to see from State Highway are those smaller geometric improvements that have a nice longer scale and wider effect. I don't believe we're going to get the mega project, quite simply with the bridge that we have there and all of the utilities, not to mention obviously the fact that 589 does not have access controls currently, and there's about 1 billion access points on there. I don't see a widening project, like I said, from point to point. You're going to see these isolated things. That being said, a big reason why we met with the county last week was because of future development on 589,
Yeah.
joint parcels that are both vying for the same space, the same access, and this is exactly why we're saying, hey, we need to partner with the county. We need to say, you know, you guys put your foot down and you say, hey, if you guys want a spot here, we can go to bat for you, but you need to have the interparcel connectors on the backside, you know, for that, and have a shared access point.
Yeah.
589 is going to be tricky moving forward. Obviously, Ocean Pines has heavy internal politics. We had plans and we actually had funding for a project at the Northgate intersection. Met with the locals there, and there was enough dissension that we decided to pull back, punt, and look again.
Pull back and vote.
Yeah,
But we looked again,
and that's the end.
realized that what we were going to do was the best alternative for that, and since they don't want it, we're like,
I think what we're looking at, and it's been mentioned in several of our meetings, that if we're not careful, 818, North Main Street's gonna become 589.
Yes.
Because it's narrow,
Mhm.
it's too fast right now. We've got development coming, and you're talking about a little more rural to the south end for now.
For now,
For now,
yes.
yes.
That's what I'm saying,
And,
yes.
you know,
Very brief.
the land is the only thing they're not making more of, correct? That's what they say. right?
But just to touch real quick though, narrow roads are slow roads. You know, I mean, it's so you end up with, it's a catch-22, you can go in and widen them up, but then people decide they want to start traveling faster.
I,
So when you can keep them narrow, it's slowing down your speed, so it's a,
yeah, but, you know, I think we even talked a while back about what it would take to reduce the speed limit up there, because it had been mentioned. And in conjunction with maybe a shuttle or something from that proposed hotel that's coming up on North Main Street, 818, by the developer. You know, could he shuttle people downtown to the restaurants and shops and such? And that came up before, in his concept plan, and also came up when we did site plan approval. He wanted us to look into that, and we
Yeah.
talked about it and what it would take.
But
And
it's one of those things too, without knowing what the future of the 818 and 50 intersection is going
Right.
to look at. You know, Berlin definitely benefits by having, you know, several major state roads.
Mhm.
You've got access of 346, 50 and 346. You've got access 50 to 818. You've got access on 113.
And then,
And 113, 346, and 376, you know, it just, there are multiple ways for people to come.
and we do know, we almost are certain that it's not gonna be too long before, if you stayed on 818 North Main Street and you hop 50 at the blinker, the property on the north side of 50, on the west side of 818,
yeah.
that's gonna be developed because, you know, part of that development process was to get those parcels rezoned to commercial use, and we did that last spring.
Does your water and sewer extend there now?
Jamie
across?
could speak to that, and it's
Okay.
under the highway. It's
All right,
under
I wasn't
50,
sure.
so it's a
That's the
matter
one
of-
parcel that we've internally continued to talk about.
And
Because
it's-
depending on what happens, that could be a game-changing parcel
And-
for
For the
development.
town too, and that's why I bring it up again.
And with that is what are all, it's not just that one parcel, but it's all of it. And what gets,
There's a lot of
Yes,
acres there.
there's a
yeah.
Exactly.
lot of
And-
land
and-
to be developed.
and what is that gonna look like?
Right.
And the problem is, for us, we like for development to pay for
Seen
improvements.
the latest plan?
But when it gets piecemealed as little small project, little small, no one is big enough to do it. You know, and developers know this.
So far, what we've seen as far as conceptually, it's all internal connectivity.
Right.
You know, there's no access on 50 at all, you know, or even asked for, because they know they're not gonna get it.
No,
So,
but
you
there's
know, or they
still-
feel
there's
they're
still-
not gonna get it, you know. everybody-
It will still impact that intersection.
Correct, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I don't
Well,
know.
there's, when we talk about the.
And I think their access controls will be anyway because of the bypass for the 113.
Over on the other north
Where are we
side.
at on the agenda, Dave?
Yeah, the other side.
One.
Whatever.
I think we've kind of covered it. I don't,
I just have one more quickie, is the 818 and 346, the blinking light we have now, is there any plans for anything there, is that to continue as is, or?
It's gonna continue as is, right? You know, I had, that development that was coming in, you know, it was questioned whether or not, you know, it doesn't mean warrant for a signal. We don't have any huge crash history there. And the question was, the next step would be a four-way stop.
I think somebody told me today, you used to be a four-way stop, and it actually used to have a signal there. You know, if that was, I'm talking the 80s or 70s even.
I have,
I have no clue, because, you know,
I will say that, I don't, since I've been with SHA, we've never removed a signal.
We don't remove signals for you.
Even when-
We'd like to sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible, you know, I work on that corner there.
Yeah,
You know,
but,
Not as a prostitute, but,
Things you didn't expect to hear tonight.
I hear, you know, when my doors are open, I have that business on the corner, when the doors are open, I hear, you know, the honking horns and the, people pulling out in front of somebody. I mean, everybody from New Jersey has no clue what a flashing yellow light means.
You heard me the other night, there really are a lot of people who pull out in front of you, you gotta
I
drive.
don't know
through
why,
there.
I don't know what it is. I mean, I was there, I remember 2 fatalities there. I've been there 31 years on that corner. And, you know, it was a double one time, and I mean, that was, you know, almost 30 years ago.
right, and I think it is, we look at 3 or 5 years, you know, because businesses change, land use changes, volume of traffic changes, lots do. It's on my radar because, you know, I don't live in Berlin, but I'm thinking like, this could be challenging during your peak season. You know?
It is. I mean, like I said, it's every day. It's an everyday occurrence.
I
The
can
doors
tell
have
you.
been shut for quite a
I've been
while now.
having people
I drive that road every night
I'm a resident. I hate it.
for the last 36 years, 38 years, and people pull out in front of me there all the time. You gotta drive through there defensively.
Yeah.
People pull out all the time.
And quite, you know, we still have crashes at signals because, you know, people run red lights and people don't pay attention and they rear end people, you know, we doing everything we can to stop distracted driving and stop aggressive driving.
Well, it's generally the people coming southbound, coming off to the 45 down to the 30
Yeah.
or whatever it is. I know I have the non-conforming property. I have that wide open
And
property.
they're the ones that don't
but-
stop, right?
Yeah, I know my customers don't
336
pull out in
stops.
front of people.
Yeah.
It's the actual roadway. I know I'm biased, but
You might throw something at me, but it'd be a good location for a roundabout.
well, that's what I've heard before.
You know,
I said the other day, as long as it goes by my cash register, I'm good to go.
Well, I mean, at that point, you've got a gateway into downtown, you've got an ability to slow traffic, you know, and I mean, it's just,
A roundabout.
there's a challenge with it having enough right-of-way to it, and it's certainly something
But really
costly.
only on the one side, the other two
Yeah.
sides
Well,
would be
and
easy.
what we'd have to do is make sure that the traffic count show a balanced flow because, you know,
Yeah.
it's,
Roundabouts don't work when there's a non-balanced flow of left turns. That's when you have issues with them.
so.
Yeah, when I leave myself, I always leave in the back of my property because I hate that. I can't take the left at that intersection. I don't always feel like you're taking your life in your own hands. I know there's not accidents there all the time, but there are. There was one a couple, 3-4 weeks ago from somebody who was new to town. They just moved here. And she had gotten hit right there.
I saw that, yeah.
That's, yeah, and just like I said, I leave that way just because it's safer for me because I know, obviously I know the intersection, but
As far as roundabouts, from your guys' perspective, I mean, that's something you like roundabouts?
Love 'em.
You do a lot of when you can, I mean.
I love them.
Love
There's yet to be a fatality at a roundabout in the state of Maryland.
I mean, I love them.
Not a single fatality at a working roundabout that we've put in the state of Maryland.
Because of the reduced speed.
And actually, it's only an advisory speed reduction, it's not, which bothers me.
It was not legal, but good luck going through a roundabout at 40 miles an
I
hour.
mean, the channelization, and everything is there to
You know.
promote the 30 miles or, you know, or less, or maybe 15.
You can't have power go out at a roundabout. You know,
They
you
don't
have traffic
eliminate
safety.
crashes, but they eliminate the severity of crashes.
Right, you get side swipes.
Instead of having T-bones, you have side swipes or you have corner fender.
well, yeah, well, that intersection happened,
But-
because a few times a day. Like right now, you go down there, you can,
But what you have to,
nothing.
make sure that your fire department is 100% behind it. Because I had, not in Maryland, but previous place I worked at, I mean, we've had more roundabouts shut down for fire departments that believe that it's going to reduce their response time.
Well,
Even though it doesn't,
Well, if
They're
you're
gonna-
going from the firehouse here to 50, I mean, that is a, you know.
But you can understand,
You're blazing.
they're built with truck aprons.
Right.
There's certain sections that are just lowered and you have the mountable curb, and it's designed so that,
So you can just kind of ease around.
Right,
yes,
right. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, when we design them so that truck, that it's called a truck apron. It's
Gotcha.
for use. They have to use it or they're not going to be able to make it around by just staying on the asphalt.
but for those people that aren't familiar with them or haven't driven a emergency response vehicle through them, there's often pushback that it will delay a response.
You know, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but the majority of them go that way, to northbound through Route 50. There's more accidents that way, I'm guessing, I'm assuming.
So speaking of that Derrickson property, at what stage are they at right now? Because they haven't sent us anything to start the access
Yeah, is
permit
it up for
process.
sale? I don't
For
think
sale,
it's
yeah.
really gonna
I
do
don't
anything.
believe he's going
That's
through
not
with
a
it, Dan.
Okay.
Oh, really?
That doesn't mean that if he were to sell it, that someone else wouldn't pick up the ball.
Wouldn't,
He had a pretty hefty design already on that, if you remember, right?
Computerized,
Yeah.
It was a
like
beautiful
little
design.
movie and all that kind of
You know,
stuff.
and
Yeah,
the
it was.
commission liked the project too, as long as those issues, the traffic issues could be solved, they were behind it, so.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a roundabout would be pretty cool, personally.
But that,
We
you know,
should see
we
if
feel that
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 same road
intersection
one.
and the property to the north of it, and some of it to the west of
110
it,
feet, I think.
that's gonna get developed, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's what I was saying, there's some really large parcels in there, and it's just something to think about, so.
I think we'll be talking about it
Bigger
sooner
than
than
the
you
Salisbury
think.
district.
yeah.
Yep,
was one
no
point.
doubt about it, yep.
Fruitland is bigger than that.
Jamie, did you have anything else you wanted to
You all covered it all.
inject?
No? Anything else? Which we would.
I really want to thank you all for your time. This was informative for all of us, and you put up with our grief. But I do appreciate all your help. Like you're all very helpful to us. And when I started here about 7 years ago, a little over 7 years ago, didn't seem like we had much dialogue. But I think all the departments now we kind of do. Like Jamie with the water and sewer, and Tim Lawrence with the electric, and myself, and all of you. So. If you have questions that come up, you let me know and we'll communicate with them.
Okay.
The last thing I want to say from my perspective to the state highway, don't deal with you folks a lot, but I'm going to tell you, Mike Marvel, we're live on World Wide Web, as I call it. Mike Marvel is an asset to your organization.
Yeah.
And I sincerely mean that, and I appreciate everything he does for us here in Berlin. And you as
We
well.
will pass that forward.
Yeah.
And thank Jay Meredith for us too.
Yes.
As well.
Will do.
Just finally, last thing, just, you know, they might be our roads, but it's your town, and that's why we're here. We want you guys to really
Well,
know.
thank you
that we
very
mean
much
that
for-
sincerely.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for your time, we appreciate it.
Phil's talking about this. Do you think they could just put something in?
I will get with Jay and get with Doug and go ahead. Is it a regularly scheduled meeting? You guys tomorrow?
Yeah, that's fine. Send me something now for
That doesn't make sense, right?
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Well, Dave's got one. Yeah. So let me know, and we'll certainly get something worked
Yes.
out. I mean,
It seems like you're just using this every once in a while.
So that slows anything.
Your inspection.
Yeah, so,
So time in 310.
I'd say separate,
Yeah, I would.
dedicated separate
So why don't you just follow them with it?
right, right,
Eighty.
a chain or something like that, and you go one separate, stop, use the ball.
Separated by a gradient, separated from the
Or
bike
just
walk,
drop the,
and then leave the road narrow. Because it is a cool road, I mean, it slows people
I
down.
like the last year. I like the one, single, and it kind of, grandma in front of you.
Sorry to keep you, thank you very much.
All right,
No, I don't know who's in that, like,
that's good. Wrap her up here real quick. The comprehensive plan review.
I don't know, you don't have very many members. You wanna-
Okay, how about the resilience thing? Can we set up the public hearing? I think we talked it to death, or we need to talk more?
Well, that may be challenging too, because today the town, immediately, I don't mean, you
Shut down
know,
the,
we are going back on a split schedule and they are going to, for now, pause public meetings.
okay.
So we may, the next time we meet, I don't know when that'll be, but it may be that we are all on a Zoom call. And it's, you know, also broadcast, so people,
Okay, I put my vote in that we can still meet.
so that we wouldn't be even us meeting in person, we would be, they're looking into that. So I don't know if we are going to be looking at a December meeting or not, so, but I'll keep you posted. We just today, the mayor put out an emergency declaration, kind of like dovetailing with what the governor's done and the county's doing. So we are going to be going back to a locked door at our department, and one of us each day will be there, not the other. And the utility departments, same thing, they're gonna be split squad. So that if one or two get infected, we still have guys to make sure your electric's on, and on the other squad, and then Jamie's people, you still get water because half of them weren't working that day when the one guy got infected, so that's the way we have to approach it right now, so.
That's understood, but,
The meetings are a fatality of that too, so.
okay. Are we, I guess my question is, are we at the stage where we can schedule a public hearing when it's,
That would be up to you,
Or
yes.
still-
I could do that,
I mean,
yeah.
I was thinking the 4 people here, can we vote on that,
I
or?
don't think a public hearing, people aren't gonna come to it.
Well, I'm just saying, are we at the stage, right, where we can stop discussing the resilience element, or just what you're talking
Well,
about?
yeah, you would,
I'm talking about the resilience element, not the comprehensive plan, just,
I don't think there's a whole lot more discussion for us. We have a public hearing someday on it, I guess.
yeah,
that's what I'm saying, we're at that stage, so we can set it as the next time it's.
if you like.
Next time the world opens up.
Yeah, whenever that time is, so I just want to make sure we're at that stage.
Yeah.
And we're-
That would be up to you, you have to tell me, are you done talking about it?
I mean, do we vote on that, or we just say we are? I think we are.
I think we're gonna have a public hearing. I think we have a public hearing first, then we vote.
I mean, as far as voting, saying we're done, that we're ready to have the public
Oh, yeah.
hearing, because you can continue discussion that evening when you have that.
My feeling is
Is that
we
correct?
discussed it, how you guys feel. I agree with you.
You
I'm
could
just saying, I
make-
guess-
you could make a motion,
I guess I confused the thing, are we ready to have the public hearing?
you could make a
And whatever
motion
that is going to be.
to proceed to the public hearing.
Yes, that's what we want, and we need to vote on that.
So I said you should make a motion if you
Okay.
want to do that.
Anybody want to make that motion?
Why don't we wait until we have a bigger planning commission here?
Okay.
Let's just, I mean, there's no rush to get it done, so.
No, at this point, no.
The resilience. I'm talking about the
Resilience, and the comprehensive plan, we're required to review it. We've been reviewing it, we can continue to review it.
Okay.
If we want to do these things like add a master plan, and we can do that any year, any time, with an amendment to the comprehensive plan, which is a public hearing,
Okay.
which is a recommendation of yours to the mayor and council, and they have a public hearing to amend the comprehensive
Okay,
plan.
I thought we were under a drop dead date with the resilience thing, that's all. I was just,
As of today, there is no drop dead date.
okay.
All drop dead dates have been dropped dead by this morning.
Can I ask you one, I got one quick question. I noticed that the mayor and council meeting, either the last time or the 2 meetings ago, I'm not sure which it was, they were discussing, they asked, he's not here, but Mr. Fleetwood, to review what we had to say about it. And his comment was that,
We're climate deniers.
yeah.
That's what it said.
So somebody mentioned to me, we sound like Neanderthals, but we'll leave that
We're
alone.
climate deniers.
Climate deniers. Which is, whatever. That being said, but somebody, I don't know if it was the finance director, said that because we accepted the grant money, that we saved $25,000 by not having to hire somebody to review our comprehensive plan. I heard it on the Facebook thing. I listened to the 25-minute section you were talking about the resilience plan, and Mr. Fleetwood talked about it, and then somebody piped in how if we hadn't accepted that $20,000 grant money, we would have had to spend $25,000 to hire a consultant to go over the comprehensive plan.
Well, we wouldn't have had to, but the
Well,
original
somebody
plan.
said that in the meeting, I was just curious, it doesn't matter who said it, I just want to, is that a fact, or?
Well, you've heard me refer to it this way before, and I'll tell you again.
Okay.
When we were sitting down doing budgets 2 budgets ago, and when I say we, I mean myself and then town administrator Laura Apple, we knew we had a review of the comprehensive plan coming up in 2020.
Yes.
And at the time, I didn't know what that entailed, neither did she, and we were, talking to Maryland Department of Planning. And we thought we would have to redo portions of the comprehensive plan and pay a consultant to do that. And we had that $25,000 as a line item in my department budget. Okay? So then this grant opportunity came up, And in the interim, I had found out from the Maryland Department of Planning that we're just required to review the comprehensive plan, not rewrite it, not submit a new one. We can edit, we can delete, but that's something you could do at any time. All I'm required to do is,
Okay, well, the
you know,
impression.
it was really as simple as giving you all copies and saying, read this and come back to me, are you satisfied? That would constitute a review. So at the time, Laura said, see if this grant that we add a resilience plan to the comprehensive plan would satisfy the requirement of the review. And the Maryland Department of Planning, as they responded in that whole package that I got from them, I think I read the letter the last time, they sent me something that thick. They reviewed our resilience plan and they liked it, but they have so many more additions they'd like to see, each little department throughout the state. So when I asked them, would that constitute a review? They said, absolutely. It was like right up their alley. So yes, yes and no. We wouldn't have been required to spend any money, but we were prepared to. Does that help?
Yes, I mean.
I had it in the budget.
We did a major rewrite of it in 2010, you know, ourselves. And we didn't have any consultants, Pete, did we? No, we did
Yeah,
it
there was.
ourselves. It
Yeah, there
was all, anyway, the insinuation.
Yeah, there was, and
made-
he's not around anymore to pay, so.
Well, the insinuation in that meeting was made that, you know, somebody saved us $45,000. Because we actually gained 20,000 by not spending the 25. That's.
At one time, we were looking at it that way, but once we clarified, no.
That wasn't mentioned until that night. I mean, I caught that, and it just seems a little disingenuous to.
Then someone didn't understand it from the start, whoever, yeah.
Okay. I know, but it just made us, you know, made us sound like somebody quoted Neanderthals. You know, as far as, you know, I've been looking at this post for, I think it was said, we've been looking at this post for 61 years and sea level hasn't changed on that water and, I take the word of the guy looking at that post for 61 years myself.
Yeah,
As opposed to the guy that's never lived here, but.
I get it.
In terms of resiliency, the SHA made a good point that if we had that master plan about the corridors, that it opens up opportunities for us to get grants. Do we know that if we could reach out to the people that created this resiliency element, if we adopted portions of this or pieces of it or the entire thing, would it open us up to grants for some of the more necessary items, more optimistic items within there? I know the easy answer is yes, but I mean, do we have an answer where if we said, hey, let's go forward with this, adopting the whole enchilada, let's just say, do we think we're going to get more grants?
No.
Okay.
I think having it, I will say this, I think having it would never hurt, you know, with a grant application. Something that you could point to under resilience. Like, for us, it's usually stormwater and nuisance flooding, as it's called, you know, rain-driven events. And we've been working on that for years, right? And we're still working on it. We're working on stormwater grants now. But if there was another place to pull grant money from, even if it was for design of a stormwater function, a lot of times they break it down, it's only design, and then this grant package is only construction when you've already designed it and spent that money. So I think, yes, it would never hurt to have that, but it wasn't a requirement to have that to qualify for grants, if you understand.
Now, let's say Berlin, Pocomoke, Snow Hill, 3 years. We all have equal footing, they have a scoring system to see who gets the grant or whatever, however they do that.
Right.
Do we think if we had this and those towns didn't, that it would give us a ledge above them
Yes.
to get this grant?
Yes.
I'm just trying to find positives.
Yes, because it's always, I can tell you from being on the inside of it, it's always a competitive process. You know, we're competing against, you know, Bethesda, and not just Pocomoke, but, you know, I don't know, Bel Air and Bethesda, we're also competing against that for money. So everything you can point to in there that you've done towards this end of whether it's being more climate change aware, and you know, and these improvements will help, you know, with mitigation, and it will help with resilience, moving forward. Everything you can point to helps you in, like you say, that point scoring system. And makes us, more competitive.
Right.
We already spent that, because we found that with the projects that we've already done. We got money from you, and you would think the normal response would be, whoa, we already gave you $800,000 over the last couple of years for stormwater projects. They don't look at it that way. They gave us the money, we spent it, we did the project, it works, and we did it quick. We did it inside the time frame. So yeah, we're ready to give you more, because from the start, we said, this is how we want to do it. Project A builds to project B to C, and when we get all the way to G or H, we got to start over somewhere, because that's 20 years down the road, but we will have completed our stormwater outlook, our stormwater master plan, if you will. So I think it does help.
Okay. I mean, that changes my mind slightly on this, because it becomes a potential financial gain for the town, when a lot of the stuff I look at potentially the opposite.
Well, can you just acknowledge that, Mr. Farr's letter to the planning commission and mayor?
Yeah, I think I gave you all a...
Yeah, they all have a copy. I just want to...
A copy that...
acknowledge that he has written a letter expressing his opinions from somebody I think who would know.
Did you get a copy of it?
Yes, it's a two-page letter from him.
Yeah,
Just to acknowledge that he had written a letter.
Mr. Farr wrote us a letter addressed to the mayor and members of the to myself and members of the Berlin Planning Commission. And where did I put it? As you know, he works with the Maryland Coastal Bays program.
Yes.
He's the watershed coordinator, and well familiar with these storm level rise and climate-driven changes all around the eastern shore, not just Worcester County. And he wrote a letter in support that we do add this resilient element, and we do, I know he also feels that it would help with funding. The letter even says that, if you did read it. He does address that. And I will tell you that the Maryland Coastal Bays program and Mr. Farr, the submerged gravel wetland on Graham Avenue, and it comes out to Old Ocean City Boulevard, we just finished last year. His group was half the funding for that. So he's well aware of what we do. He assisted us in getting that grant, and he just happens to live right here in Berlin, lives on Washington Street. And so he knows from whence he talks, I will say that. Steve's a good ally for the town, and not just as a resident, but as a professional. And I appreciated him sending the letter, and that's why I wanted you all to have it.
That's agreed. I just wanted to acknowledge that we acknowledge that he had written a letter. Does anybody else have anything, or anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? Does anybody else have anything else?
No, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I was glad we could get these people here. I just wish everybody was here.
Yeah.
We've always talked, it took a lot to get them to come, but we finally got them here, and I think that was great. I had Jay Meredith penned down for their boss for an earlier meeting, and then they backed out, and then he said, we'll do it coming up after the holidays, and I'm like, well, we're moving our meeting because of Veterans Day to the 18th. Can you make the 18th? And he said, yeah, we can make the 18th.